You're listening to Bears Beyond the Gate, a Bristol Bears podcast made by fans for fans. We're three friends who love the club, the game and all things Bears. This week we talk about the very disappointing defeat at Sale on Friday night. There were some familiar shortcomings on show and it felt like the season was slipping away. However, there was one glimmer of hope with the late bonus point try, and then Saints did us a huge favour by beating Saracens the next day. The upshot is that we now have destiny in our own hands, and crazily we could even end up in second place if results go our way. Do we have what it takes to grasp this opportunity, or will we find a way to fuck it all up? I'm Pete and I'm joined by Lee and just a couple of cheeky beers for a bit of rugby banter at the Bristol Beer Factory tap room. Well, Lee, as I have alluded to, we don't have a Miles here tonight.
We don't, do we? What's happened to him? Because
well, I don't know. I wonder.
He okay?
I wonder whether we need to put out some sort of. Is it an APB that
Or
the police
SOS.
put out? An SOS. Yeah, Miles is not here.
I feel the frustration from Friday night. He's probably gone AWOL. To be honest,
I do worry that because he. I mean, I did see some comments that he put on the WhatsApp group during and after that game on Friday, and. I mean,
I think it's fair to say we weren't very happy on Friday night, the pair of us.
And it's good that those WhatsApp groups are encrypted, so
yes.
nobody else could read them. So, yeah, no, actually, joking aside, of course we're joking. Miles, we know where he is. Poor old Miles is...
He's at the allotment, isn't he?
He's at the allotment. I think there's like some regional marrow growing competition next week, and he's got to do a bit of last-minute composting. Because, you know what, I mean, this dry weather must be terrible for allotment people, like having to water their blooming marrows left, right and centre. No, he isn't. No, Duchess is away for the weekend and I think delayed her return. So Miles has got a bit of a domestic situation where he's having to sort a load of stuff out.
He's playing
we gave him an exeat, didn't we? Or
we did.
A pass, as some people would say, or even a pass, as a lot of you would say. So Miles is not with us.
Was that your Bristolian, Pete?
Well, I don't know what it was.
Because I think that needs to stop right now.
It was more Somerset, wasn't it? Right, okay. So...
well, it does mean we've got to talk about the game.
We do. We have got to talk about game and actually all the implications around it, because as I said in the intro, straight after the game, I think there was a lot of frustration from a lot of people, a lot of fans, and I'm sure the players as well were very frustrated. And but as I said, there was that glimmer of light with the bonus point. You think, well, you know, maybe that might come back to help us. And then, of course, Saints pulled off an absolute blinder against Sarries. And I mean, we don't really like to talk about other games too much, but how Luke Pearce did not give that as a forward pass at the end, I really don't know. And I wonder whether he was feeling guilty about some dodgy decisions for us. You know, for a few games ago. So, well, in the big game, there was one or two dodgy ones. So, I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think Pat Lam he's probably already got the champagne sent out to Luke Pearce, Phil Dowson and Sam Vesti, to be honest. Saints really did rescue our weekend, in all fairness. I mean, it's come at a massive cost to them as well. Yeah. I know we don't talk about other, teams unless we were playing against them, but Saints have got a lot of injuries going into that Bordeaux game, which is really unfortunate. But for our point of view, being totally selfish as Bears supporters, they dug us out of a massive hole. And Luke Pearce, well, he's my favourite referee of all time. I mean, and sorry, just to butt in, it is nice actually. I'm just gonna put this right out there. Sarries fans, right? Sarries supporters. They were so salty after, but how many times? Yeah. And I'm not just saying this as a Bears fan, but every other team in the league would say the same thing. How many times have they got away with absolute murder? Yeah. Right? And that one just bit me on the ass, and I loved it.
We love rugby, and generally the Sarries fans we've met have been all fine.
Oh, good. Yeah.
But it's that sense of entitlement that makes me want to vomit. It's a bit like when Saints go and switch into football, when we drew 0-0 with Man City last week to get our 12 points, and Ruben Diaz was basically slagging us off by saying, we didn't even try and play football. They didn't try. I'm like, What do you expect us to do? What you want us to try and play so you can pick us off and beat us 10-0? This sense of entitlement about some of these big clubs that have basically bought their way to success is quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
So in some ways, poor old Saracens, like I don't think anybody had any sympathy for them whatsoever, apart from their fans.
It was a beautiful thing, and it all just hit them at once. I mean, let's be honest though, they're still not out there.
No.
Anything could happen.
I must apologise for using.
Don't say alluded again.
I won't. But as I said in my intro, we have always, it may well be fine for them because we may do something that allows them to qualify. But anyway, let's not talk about other teams.
No.
Because, we might talk about Quins later on because they are going to be the next opposition that we've got. But of course, let's just focus on the game on Friday. And I think, to be honest, we all kind of knew it's going to be a tough game.
Yeah.
But I think in the pod last week, we accepted that it was going to be tough, but we also accepted the fact that if we want to...
Sorry, that's the Duchess just flying home, I think.
I think it is. She's got a quick helicopter taxi from Newquay Airport. We knew it was going to be tough, but that's you've got to win those games. If you want to have pretensions of grandeur, and we are being told the whole time that we're a good side and we're in it to try and win it, then you have to go to places like Sale and you have to perform and you have to get a result. And I think ultimately it was disappointing because it didn't happen, and it was the manner of it not happening as well. I mean, we shipped 40 points yet again. 5 tries yet again.
And the interesting thing is when we dissect this between the two of us, because I watched the game live on TV. You were busy that
I watched
Friday
it
evening.
The next day.
You watched it.
Recorded.
So it was really good because we're dissecting it from 2 points of view now because you knew the result.
Yeah.
But actually the frustration for me is we've already got, just going into the game, right? We've got Pat Lam saying this is the shootout. It's us against Sel, right? So you, as a supporter, you're building yourself up. You're going like, this is it. You're like, we're going all guns blazing for this. And it didn't happen. And on multiple occasions this season, it hasn't happened. And that is my worry. I think we're always going to come up short because there didn't, this is going to sound overcritical, but let's dissect it in a minute. But we didn't turn up. We didn't turn up again. And that worries me.
I think and I think you're right. In a sense, mentally, we didn't turn up. In the sense that we were doing things that weren't, when you say, go back a step. If you have the context, it's all the players know it's important. It's like fun, not just important for the season, but important that they know that fans have been kind of given a tough time.
Yeah.
They've scored some amazing tries, but we've also leaked so much stuff. They must be fully aware that it's quite hard being a Bristol fan, not only because they're sort of, it's the hope that kills us type thing. And they're kind of raising us up and we're falling down again. So you would kind of think, you've got to really, really, really be on your A game. You've got to make no mistakes, no stupid mistakes. Like they all know how to play rugby. They all know that you can get away with things in rugby, but they all know that sometimes you've just got to be a bit more streetwise and a bit street smart about how you go about your business. And let's get into the game. I mean, I said I watched it knowing what had happened, and I was quite intrigued to see how it panned out because I'd had certain sort of comments I'd seen on social media and from you and Miles, which were pretty frustrating. I could sense the frustration.
Yeah.
But then I thought we scored 5 tries and they scored 5 tries, and actually, it sounded like there was elements of us being in it. But so, I mean, I've just written a few things down. I mean, basically, I thought we made a pretty good start. We came out, it was going backwards and forwards a bit. And then, we were trying to get ascendancy. And I think we said that you've got to try and really get on top of a team like Sale early on, which is not easy. I'm not saying it's not easy, but that means don't make stupid mistakes. Don't be cohesive. And then I think we gifted them a 3-point penalty when, I'm not going to say it was, but somebody went late on George Ford. Like, I know why they went late on George Ford, because he is the conductor and you want to make a mess mark, but you've got to choose your moment. And it was just a cheap penalty and suddenly they've got 3 points. And then, there's something else happens and then they score again. And suddenly you're 10-0 down and you think, well, we started quite well and we're 10-0 down. So what, they haven't done that much to get there. We're kind of giving them, and, but then Rand scored and we get back in it again. And it just seemed to me that there was we were doing that thing where we were just getting our foot back in and then we'd let the release button off. What do you think?
Well, it is interesting because watching it live, I agree with the first bit. We started really well. Actually, I thought there was a couple of good kicks from Rands, from Rich Lane.
Yeah. Lane did an amazing one, didn't he? Like a big left spoomer.
Yeah. And
which we've been saying he should do a lot more of that.
He's got that in his locker, hasn't he?
Out the hand when we need distance so we can get a attacking line out.
Yeah.
Rather than a kind of short one that's on the outside of someone's right boot.
Absolutely,
anyway, that's another issue.
And the thing is, so the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought we were really good. The scrums were really solid. And it was a positive start. And I thought, well, we're in the game. I mean, we should say, the first try for Sal, Rich Lane was actually comatose on the side of the pitch.
And they didn't stop the game. And he was literally trying to get off the pitch so he wasn't stamped on the ankle or calf or whatever it was. Now that in itself, and then they went and scored from that next phase. Now, they should have stopped the game. The ref should have stopped the game.
He should have definitely stopped the game.
Okay,
at that point.
they would have had a scrum. They might well have scored from it. But it was you could see that might have taken the focus off players a little bit. It's like, oh shit, Rich is down. And they're looking around and not really.
The thing is, you're trying to regroup even then at the last second, aren't you? And that's not good.
Yeah.
Because everyone's got their tasks and their positions and they're set. But it was quite positive. It was around 15 minutes that I felt it was starting to go, and it was starting to slip away. Because I felt that George Ford was starting to have a masterclass. He was finding his groove. What you said earlier about we tried to hit him early, and I think that was the game plan, no doubt about it. And it just didn't work because he's such a classy operator. He really is. He was starting to get into his groove at 15 minutes, and then all of a sudden I felt that we started losing the decisions with the referee as well then at that point. And you could just, it was almost like you could see it slipping away bit by bit by bit from then on.
I think Rand scored. Yes, the first try, Lane was down. I think, we're 10-0 down, but actually not really getting a lot of possession. Rands then scores that kind of single try, which is great. But in hindsight, I wish he'd cut back. Rather than run to the corner, cut back to get a bit closer to the. I think he could have done. I think he could. I know why he did it. He was brilliant. But in hindsight, if he cut back inside, the covering lumpy lot would have probably missed him, and he could have gotten a bit. Anyway, so we got there.
But I just on that, I loved the celebration.
Yeah, it was good. That's
because
passion.
that was passion.
Yeah,
and I loved that, and I loved the fact that he got booed by the fans.
That's a badge of honour.
Yeah, absolutely. That was brilliant.
And he got a big bear hug from Jake.
He did. That's right.
If you want one bloke to come in straight after you scored a try and been booed, Big Jake come in, like big beary arms around him.
And the big old ginger beard.
Big old ginger beard wrapping him around him and just lifting him up with one. Jake got him in the crook of his arm, carried him off. But of course, you know what bears do a lot of the time when we score?
Yeah.
When we let them score straight away. And I've just looked at my notes, and I think 28 minutes, so only 5 minutes later, they then scored again. And I think it was what was it? It was a breakdown penalty yet again that they got, and it's hard to say whether that was bad from us or good from them. It was a chop tackle on someone, and then they got a jackler straight in.
Yeah.
And of course, we got done for holding on. And then, I think the try came after that from a line out. And, you think, well, maybe our boys, this is the problem we have when we're trying to run it. People get isolated and they're not, they are the sort of team that will take advantage of any, they're kind of like like when you see those wildlife programs and you've got lions like stalking, or leopards stalking in the savannah. And there's always a tiny little vulnerable, sort of.
It's the weak link of the whole.
Sale are the sort of ones that are going to get that weak little. And it felt like that break that we tried to do, where we tried to run it out, was like a weak little gazelle that was just waiting to be smothered and eaten by the lion.
Yeah.
And that chop, tackle and jackal after Rans was like a gazelle just losing contact with its mother. And like our clear out men lost contact with whoever it was with the ball. And it was just like watching, I could almost hear David Attenborough commentating at the time. It went from Nick Mullins to David Attenborough.
Well, I mean, yes, totally agree with that.
The long analogy that was.
The massive long analogy, but the pickup from Johnny Hill was immense.
Yeah.
Absolutely immense. And without that, they don't score.
I know.
I don't think. And there was a couple of times that I remember, just thinking about it now, there was a couple of times where we went, like the breakdown was struggling then at this point, and a couple of times we went over the ball trying to protect. And I don't know, it just, you know what I mean? And also, the one thing I actually just thinking about it now, because I'm like trying to regurgitate this in my head. The one thing that I can remember is that we were, I don't know, it felt like our defence, instead of defending like plurally, it was singular. It was good defence, but in single terms. Yeah. And we weren't defending as a team. Yeah. That's how it felt.
It felt like we've almost felt like it's like we've got this strategy that says, boys, we've got to have a couple of big hits for the highlight show, you know. And and there were some big hits, and I don't think there was any question that we were shirking. But the thing is, when you're when you're looking for individual big hits, you're losing that boring blanket of cohesive. Yeah. Well, it could be anybody that's doing it. And like when you watch Sale, it's like, I don't know who it is. It's probably a Dupree's, but there's hundreds of them.
Could be anyone.
But it could be anyone. Yeah. And it's just a guy in a blue who's made a big tackle, and then two more have come in. And you know, that's my first general point actually, is that I felt overall that Sale were just a better side than us, and they were just more cohesive, and actually they're not a bad attacking side. I think this narrative of them being boring kickers is gone. They have an incredibly high work ethic. They're very aggressive, but they've got the forwards and the backs do link together really well. And like that first try, it was Tom Curry, didn't it? It was out to Dupree's number 8. So, you know, they've actually developed their game plan to be, in a way, I think what ours should be a bit more like, is a bit more cohesion, but they haven't lost that kind of dog stuff that you do.
Well, I mean, that's why they continually finish in the top 4.
Yeah, why they continually beat us.
Because they are they're so good, and they're a unit, and they've got that toughness, that mental toughness that we are. And I hate saying this, but it just feels like we haven't got it. No. But then at half-time, I can remember, because are we there yet?
We're almost. I think let's get to. There was I think you mentioned the fact we got a couple. I thought it was quite harsh. We seemed to get penalised a lot for hand on the floor. Yeah. When again, I said this to you earlier before we started recording. I always feel that's really unfair, that if you've got there they've got isolated, and as a jackler or a whatever, a forward, you've got there. Yeah. You've done the hard work. You've done the hard work. Their clear out men aren't there, and then you get penalised because. And actually, Mata had one where I thought he said your hands are on the floor, and it was like his little finger, and his other hand was on the ball, and I was under the impression that they give you a chance, and it felt to me like Adam Leal had been to Jackal School and had done a course on really and that was the thing sometimes we think refs have a thing they look at during the game, and it just so happened that we were doing the thing all the time that he was looking at, rather than the side entry, or rather than the sort of clearing out from the side, or whatever, because Sale do a lot of that, a lot of players do that, but it just felt to me that again we were quite unlucky that Adam Leal was just looking for that thing which we did all the time. I could be wrong.
And no, I think you're spot on, and that all ties in with the game slipping away from us for me. And it almost felt like Sel were just playing the referee a little bit better than we were.
But not in any sort of sneaky way. They were just doing it in a kind of clever, sort of, not like a school SWAT sort of way. It's like, there are certain kids you look at school and you think, they're just good
What,
at
like
what
the
they
teacher's
do.
pets?
Yeah, well, not really the pet, because they're kind of cool, but they're just good at what they do. They
Oh,
don't
yeah.
they don't
Yeah, yeah.
go over the top about it. They don't boast about it, but they're just so good at what they do. And it's, you look at them thinking, I don't know what to do to be like you. And it's a bit like Briz. I think that some of them are thinking, we just, we can't compete with that. And then, 72% possession tells it all, really,
Yeah.
in that first half, despite having a really good scrum. I thought Kloska did a great job against Bevan Rod.
Yeah, he did.
He was really... Bevan Rod was desperate to try and do something. And Kloska was getting stuck in. And, we didn't lose a scrum pen, I can't remember.
No.
Line out, we spoilt a couple of those. So ironically, set piece was quite good. But then it was, it's breakdown.
I feel like maybe that's something that Fitz will learn as he grows as a captain. I think, and let's face it, you got... Like, we didn't have Stephen Luatil on the field.
Yeah.
He's always, like...
Probably missed him a little bit.
Yeah, a very sensible head and an experienced player. The referee looks at him, and when he says something, the referee's more likely to listen. And that's not a criticism against Fitz, because he's a fantastic captain. But I think sometimes it just felt on Friday night that Sal were just getting... The word in just a little bit.
It's interesting that what you say, because you think, if you think of captains in the Prem, so let's go Maro Itoje. This guy has got a huge amount, and rightly so, huge amount of respect in the game. But it's almost unfair that when we play Saracens that Fitz is up against Maro, because he's got an unfair advantage. Because I subconsciously, the officials are going to listen to Maro Itoje more, because he's a Lions captain. Yeah, I feel, and I don't want to blame. I know it sounds like I'm now going down and I've always said he shouldn't go down a ref rant, but I do think it's something that has to be looked at as part of the big mix of how you manage a whole game. It's part of game management, and I just think Fitz has got a real hard job, because he's kind of they probably subconsciously think, well, he used to play for Durham University first, and. Rather than think, this guy has got a bit of dog about him. He wouldn't be given captain by Pat Lam if he hadn't something about him. No. But it's almost like they don't delve any further than, well, he's a nice lad, He's quite well spoken. He's they'll know the narrative of him. Yeah. Whereas Maro's been there, seen it, done it.
It's true.
And I just wonder whether we are a little bit. But then who would be? Would Steve? But Steve was quite a quiet sort of captain. Steve's quite good at...
No, Fitz is the guy for the job. He's definitely the guy for the job.
I'm not trying to say we should have another captain, sorry. Yeah.
No, but I think we're just going to have a period of time where he needs to almost grow into the skin of being a Premiership captain.
And I just wish that, if he got a few mentions that he was going to be in the England squad or the A squad, it gives him some more gravitas in the wider chat, because we all know what a great player is, and actually probably people within the game recognise what he is, but no wider people would never talk about Fitzharding as they'll talk about the Currys, or they'll talk about Ben Earl, or they'll talk about even like the guy at Harlequins who I really like, Kenningham, there's or the jackler at Harlequins, what's his name, that guy that jackals all the time, and I can't remember, but there are narratives around other players that there isn't around Fitz, and that's just because he's just under the radar a bit. Now I don't know, maybe he should go on I'm a Celebrity, or he should go. Maybe he should.
I think
maybe he should do a podcast.
He shouldn't suffer for that. No, should he?
But I just
everyone's talking about Emery Pollock at the moment because he's a larger than life character, and don't get me wrong, he's a great player, but Fitz is a great player too. And you just feel he just needs to he needs to just keep digging away.
Maybe he should come on a podcast.
It does. Maybe he should, but then would that happen?
Don't know.
Would the club allow that to happen? Possibly not. No. Should we talk about the second half?
Let's do second half then. So we get to the first half, and I don't think I'd written down here we weren't terrible at all. And I was expecting us to be. Having heard having seen the comments,
I was quite positive up to half time.
You were positive at half time, and I thought, we weren't terrible. If I'd been watching this full time, I would have been frustrated that we shipped that many points and hadn't made the most of our small amount of territory. But we'd scrum and held up well. We'd stolen a couple of lineouts. We defended our line. But I also said we just didn't look cohesive, like we said.
It didn't
And
look
there was
like a
bit
game we
of
were going to
panic.
win, did it?
There just started to be a bit of panicky kicking. I mean, Ogray did that little kick, and I think Ben Kay said, like, you would never break. You, a forward shouldn't even think about doing that. Should just get their head down and draw. But we gave away quite a lot of penalties, and as we said before, perhaps some of them were silly, but some of them were quite harsh as well. So that maelstrom of all those things meant that we were like quite a lot of points down.
I think you're right. I think you're spot on. I think the penalties count was starting to go against us. The fact that George Ford was starting to run the show, and all these little things, all these little facets of the game started going against us. And we talk about momentum's massive in rugby, and all the momentum going up to half time was against us.
But let's go second half. I mean, we scored first though. We did second half.
Yeah,
and that must have been
another
big bill. You know, he's getting on the score sheet a bit now. I think, but. So, initially you say there were some positives, and then suddenly, 2 minutes into the first half, we score again. I mean, we got within 10 points of them. But I don't know. It's just, I don't know what you think. What happened in the second half?
Well, it felt like we were always chasing it.
Yeah.
It didn't ever feel like we were going to do anything but chase the game. And it was a great try as well from Mata.
It was.
We're going to keep talking about this because we're going to, in a bit, we're going to talk about the biggest enigma, I think, in Bristol Bears history. But let's go with Mata first. We got within 10 points, like you say, but it almost felt like it. I don't know. I didn't get the impression we were going to kick on and then reduce that 10 points at all.
No, and then of course inevitably Sale then score. And then they kick the conversion, and then suddenly before you know it, we were 41 to something down. I can't remember what the differential went to before we then had our
I think it was it was
quite big
17 something like that.
And it was a big. It was 41-17. It was a big differential.
That's when I lost my shit.
Yeah, and I can see at 41-17, having huffed and puffed. It is depressing.
Yeah,
because we haven't been able, whether or not it's we just haven't been able to change that narrative. And we've seen that, what happened against Saints, what happened against Leicester. We've seen what happened against Gloucester. We have got back into games. We've been in games, but we just haven't been able to wrestle. And that's what we want to see. We want to see wrestling of the momentum back.
Ironically, at this point, or maybe just before this point, I put a post out on Twitter and saying, should we just play the Bears way now? Because we've lost the game. The game's gone. Yeah. Let's play. And ironically, we did. We did start playing. And what have we said for the last God knows how many weeks and months? We can start playing, but before we do any of that, we need to earn the right. We need the base, the foundation needs to be laid. Right? Before we can do anything else. And the fancy stuff's all great, but the foundation needs to be built before that happens. And when we started throwing the ball around then at that point, you're starting to think, well, that's Bristol Bears. And the supporters that were in the ground, it must be it was so frustrating watching it on the TV again, because you're just thinking, oh my God, this is the way we can play.
Yeah. But
we can't start playing that game. That won't work, playing it from 41-17 down.
Yeah.
That's never going to work. But then let's talk about the third try, because we got to talk about Siva.
That was a proper old rugby league try, wasn't it?
That is what he can do.
And he actually looked, we said that when he came on for the Bath game, that was one of his best performances because he looked fresh and that was
stayed on the pitch, which was a bonus.
And maybe
that's a world class finish.
It was a great finish, and he looks quick, doesn't he? And he's strong, and he's such an enigma.
He really is, because what he can give you going forward, I can see exactly what Pat Lam sees in him. Absolutely, I can. But then it's just those little bits
moments.
And he needs to be the whole package. And unfortunately, he just Well, it looks quite the whole
but I mean, it
package.
looks like he may have to play a part in the last game of the season. I mean, if Rich Lane's out, we're not sure. We're going to need all our fit backs. We don't know. Maybe Jack Bates will be back by then. That was the word on the street we got from close source to Jack Bates. That he hopefully will be fit for the Quins game. But yeah, I mean, I love it when Seaver plays like that, and we just need more of it, and we don't want to have the other stuff.
Well, we need a guy who can defend.
Yeah.
Equally as well as he can attack.
And defending isn't just about 1-to-1, is it? It's about knowing where you said this just now. It's about being in the right place, in a line with your mates.
Yeah.
And that's what it seems to be lacking. And a lot of people have talked about, we don't really have a defensive system. And it's easy to it's easy to slag off, the defensive sort of coaches, but I mean, we don't know what goes on. We don't know how much time they get. I mean, if Pat's saying that every player gets 10,000 touches on the ball, passes or whatever, you think, well, they ain't got much more time for anything else. They haven't got time to go to the toilet. I wonder whether we just don't spend enough time on it, and like the time we spend is just not sufficient to get that practicing that kind of. Whereas you look at Sale and they just all seem to know what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it is something I think we owe our listeners to bring this up. I think we are not a cohesive unit defensively.
Doesn't seem
and we
so.
haven't been all season, really. We got away with it because at the start of the season we were playing some brilliant offensive play. We've had Gab scoring tries for fun and, entertaining rugby. But we're not a cohesive unit.
No, it doesn't seem like that.
And unless we work on that, we are going to struggle.
We're going to struggle, and I think we have to accept that we are going to have struggles. Like even this Harlequins game, which we now got a glimmer of hope. We know it ain't going to necessarily. There is a fairly good chance it ain't going to go well.
The one thing in our favour though with Quins, is that they will attack as well.
So
that could play into our hands. But you're right. Yeah, you are right.
Going back to the defensive thing, it just struck me, and it's really weird why it came to me when you were saying it, that the now defunct Six Nations Netflix thing that they didn't do this season because they basically cocked that up by making it all kind of about Mark Smith and his fucking Humvee and all that sort of stuff, rather than actually getting dirty behind it. But the interesting thing is, in the first series, they did quite a lot on France, and they had Sean Edwards, and how Sean Edwards and Gail Fickou was his defensive captain. Yeah. And it was almost like, he found a guy that organised everything as a defence. That was his job. And that's the thing. I don't think we feel like we've got a defensive captain in the side that can see when things are slightly out of kilter and is literally shouting at people. Yeah. And I see people put their hands up, don't they? Do that all the time and put their hands up and cover. It's almost like a bit panicky, but it's almost like you need one person whose job is, so that is their job. And I don't know, maybe I'm naive, I don't know, but I just remember Sean Edwards, and if there's anybody who knows anything about defence, Sean Edwards.
Oh God, yeah.
And the fact that he identified an individual that was his defensive captain and then worked from that is an interesting idea. And I'm sure they have that, maybe we do, but we never talk about it, do we? We never talk about us. We talk about the leadership group, and we talk about this, but we never ever hear that anybody is our defensive captain.
No, we don't. And I mean, we can also bear in mind that Sean Edwards can speak a word of French. And yet he still managed to get his ethos across. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's almost as if it's ironic for me, but less is more. Have someone who doesn't say a lot. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, Jordan Crane strikes me as the sort of guy that is a bit like that. Maybe just doesn't get a chance to get his word in edgeways sometimes. Yeah. But I think it's something to think. It's something that clearly
it's something if we don't work on, we're not winning.
We're going to struggle.
Yeah.
But then again, and this takes us. I mean, is there anything else we want to mention on on Friday?
Yeah, we got to mention the finale because obviously it was a massive plus. The fact that we kept going till the end. We did actually, ironically, then started playing the Bears way. We were throwing the ball around with freedom.
Gay abandon.
Yes, that's exactly what we did. Yeah. But Byrne obviously scored a brilliant try. But that Burn try, actually, that made me laugh a little bit because it was Kieran Marmion, wasn't it? Who actually found himself like completely on his own because the scrum had gone all to the right-hand side. And he was like, shit.
Yeah.
Picked the ball up, and obviously Byrne was there, I could see it.
Yeah.
And ran onto the pass and scored a brilliant try. And then Calavetti as well, scoring at the end, the fifth try.
And that reminds me, that was straight from that was like the old days of semi, wasn't it? Where it was straight from the kickoff.
Yeah.
Immediately, Yancey van Rensburg, Bernard pops it to a runner. It was Capon. And see that
brilliant break.
I mean, Capon, chunky
we should
lad.
talk about Will Capon.
I think we should talk about Will Capon. I mean, the guy has been in the shadows all season, and he suddenly comes out of the shadows because he has to, out of necessity. And you're thinking, he's a scrummager. He's willing. He's got good hands. And he scored that try against Bath, and he was in the right, and he's willing to. He was on the shoulder then. And he was on the shoulder then, and he whipped out a fantastic little pass out to Calavetti, who did the business.
And Will Capon's never ever let us down.
No,
do you remember?
Never let us down.
Oh, was it in the European final? He took the throw, didn't he?
No, that was
Exeter.
You're thinking about the Chiefs game when we won at the Def,
and he went right to the back of the line out.
One of the greatest, and that
doesn't get enough credit from me.
I wonder, because he looks to me like he's a good scrummager. It's almost like we've sacrificed a little bit of that for mobility, and we love Thacker. We love Ogray as well.
Yeah,
and Ogray actually, Ogray was supposed to be almost like the hybrid of the two in some ways. But it seems to me that there have been certain moments where we should have, and I wonder where Capon will, he's obviously in now, and maybe, he will play a big role in the Quins game and beyond. But yeah, big up to him, because he's a chunky lad, and seeing a big chunky lad sprint 50 yards and then throw a pass to the left is pretty impressive stuff.
Well, it's a beautiful thing just seeing a hooker break through like that, and, gaining ground.
A bit like their hooker I really liked him, McElroy.
Yeah, he was good.
I mean, and because I was thinking, oh, thank God, Cowan Dickey's not playing, and then they find some other guy who's just as good. I know. And I mean, but he was in the same sort of build, wasn't he? It was like chunky and I like fair. I mean, if I'd been a Sale fan, I would have been well chuffed with McElroy. So. Yeah, so I mean, a kind of a nice finish, and again, despite that, a lot of people would say it was papering over the cracks, and I think would have a right to say that. I think it was a little bit too late. And I think you're right. It was that time where we were 10 points down, and then it went to 41-17. That was the disappointing moment, and I think that's when you were venting quite a lot of your fury, and even Miles used the word drat and disgrace and stuff like that. And it's understandable. And I think a lot of other fans they were just fed up, as you said earlier, fed up of having to go through like this, we might get back in it, and then just not having that cohesiveness. And I mean,
this was a shootout.
This was a shootout, and we've been told it's a shootout. And then when you feel like it's not going your way,
it feels like Sour at one end, and like Clint Eastwood. Yeah. Like both barrels.
Yeah.
And we were, what were we?
Blazing saddles, we were.
We were firing blanks.
We were shooting blanks.
Yes.
Yeah, it was, it's like we've got the gunmanship, but we just didn't have the right kind of artillery in there. We didn't have the right armaments.
We were getting the Western .22 going, weren't we? We've already
but we've got all the moves. We've got all the moves. We look good, but then we realise we've got an air gun rather than like a Kalashnikov. That's the trouble. And Sale are like, we always have a Kalashnikov. What's wrong with you? It's it was a bit like that. Not that
it's the first thing we bring out of the cabinet.
It's like, why wouldn't you have a Kalashnikov? Yeah. Why have you got a pop gun? Yeah, you look good on it. You've got a good stance there. Good on your shoulder, but it ain't doing anything. Not that we condone like shooting or anything like that, although it is done, as a sport, so it's not all bad.
We've made a lot of analogies.
Sometimes when it's so obvious what's going on, you have to kind of talk in analogies to try and make sense of it a bit more.
Yeah, it's quite cathartic.
It is cathartic,
in a lot of ways.
I think it's probably been quite a good thing that it's taken 2 days for the pod to happen after. Sometimes and the fact the Saints game was in the middle of it, I think it has, but it takes us on nicely. Oh, actually, no, it doesn't take us on nicely. We'll come to that in a minute. But I do think at this juncture, we should just recognise a few listener interactions.
Can I just say one thing before you do that? I want to say well done to Sell Sharks fans.
Yeah.
Because I think nearly 8,000 turned out.
Yeah.
Which is a lot better than you remember last time we played there. I think it was an absolute 4,000. 5,000. What a load of nonsense! A load of empty seats.
Yeah. And they've worked hard on that. I think that the club, behind the scenes, Jason Orange's brother, Simon Orange. Yeah. They've, they know that they're struggling. They're in a massive football/rugby league heartland.
Yeah.
And have done I feel like even though they're sometimes. Although I'm starting to hate them less than I used to now, because I feel that they've actually got a few more layers to their game plan. And I actually warm into Sanderson a bit more, because I actually think he's quite good. I think he's quite a thoughtful coach, and he does deliver.
Be interesting to see, our listeners that have gone to the game, what the atmosphere was actually like. Because I imagine in a small ground like that, nearly 8,000 people. That would have been quite a good atmosphere.
Could hear a lot. Yeah. Well, we did it. I'm sure I heard a few bit of Bristoling going on, but
maybe some of the listeners could just maybe tweet, text us or whatever,
and also give us what their general working situation is, because most of us, the thought of having to get to Manchester on a Friday night at the end of a working week is quite tricky. Yeah. So I'd like to know. Actually, I'm intrigued to know what's their kind of general domestic setup that allows them to get there on time, or are they just kind of jobs that you can just take a day off every now and again, which I can't do as a teacher, so it is what it is.
Could be being self-employed.
Yeah, but you've got to think about it though. Yeah, you can't. You've got, but some people don't have to worry about it. I'd be interested to know. I mean, anyway, so you're right. So let's quickly. I wanted to, because there was a couple of interesting. I'm not going to read them all out, but we did have a couple of. We had a family. We actually now got two family of poets because we've had the Hambleys. Yes. Now the Hambleys are well known now.
Well, they're elite, aren't they?
Very elite, and they are driving poetry forward. And you did get sent one quite early on,
and I did ask for it.
I've got it here.
It was so frustrating. I think there wasn't going to be a poem or an acrostic or whatever was coming. And I did plead with the old amen song.
It was you did. It was it said now it was to Robin.
Yeah.
And Hammy 79, that side of the Hambley twinnery. And you said something needs sort. No, Robin said something needs sort. I can't even be bothered to do an acrostic. He was upset.
Yeah.
This was at the game, and then you said, now that's worse than I could even imagine. Please do one just for the humour with the kind of praying sign. I promise I won't let you down on Sunday. So here we go. We're going to, and it says from Robin, it says, Lee, just for you, pal. And here it goes. Fearful of the unusual result against Sale, effort wasn't lacking. Defence seemed improved in parts. Unobservant officials at times. Playoffs maybe.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
And that is fed up.
Fed up.
But actually, Robin, what he did there was try and give you hope.
Yes.
Didn't he?
Yeah, well, I think as Bears supporters, we always still have hope. Always.
Always want hope.
That's the one thing that throughout the frustration, we always still cling on to, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, sometimes top of a cliff and the earth's starting to fall away underneath your fingertips.
Brought you back. I felt you were at the top of the cliff on Friday night, and Robin has pulled you back from the edge.
Well, he's lifted me up.
He's lifted you up. He's raised you up, actually.
Robin Hambley and Northampton Saints collectively have grabbed.
They got one was under each armpit.
It was a bit like a Jake Walmore hug.
Yeah. You wanted, that's all you wanted. All you wanted was somebody to say it's going to be all right. Yeah. It's going to be all right.
Yeah.
Give you a big hug.
For another fortnight.
Talking about that, you'll never guess what's just come through on the WhatsApp live. Is Miles has sent us a short, sharp summary. I thought he wasn't going to do it. And at this juncture, I think we're going to listen to it. Let's listen to it now. Let's see what Miles. This is live podcasting. Miles has just sent through.
Apologies for any swearing.
And it's 2 minutes 16. So I bet get on with it.
Hey boys, difficult logistics in the Clark household mean I can't join you for a live pod this evening, so sorry about that. However, I thought I'd send a little short, sharp summary of the Friday night game, which ended up in a loss, as we all know. So 41-27 to Sale, just 1 point for the Bristol Bears, but fair play Sale. I mean, they were huge. It was a tough Sale side. They were carrying well. Their passing was accurate George Ford had an absolute blinder. In fact, the headlines were George Ford Masterclass, and I can't deny that. His kicks were just brilliant. Add to the fact that he converted every single one of those tries. Good game for him. I mean, and that forced us to sort of try things a little bit different. As we know, it didn't work in December, so we tried to kick a little bit more. To some success, but sadly our phase count was pretty low in the first half, as was our possession. Sale was 72%, dominant in the defence as well. And really that meant there was only, if but 5 to 10 minutes of Bristol glory play really in the whole match. We just couldn't compete to the breakdown. The Sale were just too good, too fast, and I don't think we had one jackal. I mean, add to that, poor old AJ McGinty, he just was not at the races on Friday night. Missed every single one of the conversions, as did Harry Byrne. And that just left Jimmy Williams to convert one lonely kick, really. So despite being 5 tries apiece, the 41-27 scoreline does not look good. Add to those woes, it looks like Rich Lane have suffered a calf injury and may now be out for the rest of the season. So not great, really. So we're heading into the last home game at Ashton Gate, the fortress, as we like to call it, against the mighty Quins. So looking forward to the game in a couple of weeks' time, which could propel us into the playoffs. And that's in our own hands this time. So looking forward to going down the gate. Up the Bears.
Well, do you know what? He saved me a job because I had all the stats written out.
Yeah.
And obviously Miles is now the stat man. He's done all that.
Well, I thought it was a very erudite summary. We should have just played that. If he'd sent that early, we could have got home early, couldn't we?
Exactly.
Oh, fair play to Miles.
One thing I do want to say, though, is Adge didn't have his best game. We all know that. But he has had a tough week, and we know that.
Yep.
We know that he's had not the best week in the world. And I think we're going to let him off this one.
I think we'll let him off. He's got a lot of credit in the bank, in the Bears bank. In the Bears bank.
Yes.
He's not in overdraft. So
and it wasn't just like it was, everything was hinging on him converting or anything like that. It was a collective. We were beaten by a better team.
We were, and it's just disappointing that we don't ever, we want to win.
Yes,
and we just haven't won much recently, and that's what's disappointing. I think just before we go on and just slightly end by talking about the Quins game briefly, I did want to mention we've talked a lot about the family of poets, the Hambley poet family, but we've now got a new poetry family on the block. We've got the Mizens. Ooh. So today on Instagram, I had a request. Somebody wants to send you a message request. It's usually some sort of woman.
Well, I don't want to
It's
go
usually,
in there.
Usually some sort of, I'm trying to think, some sort of dodgy account. But this was from Richard Mizzen, and I thought, who the hell's Mizzen? I know Paul Mizzen is the granddad.
And we know
Spencer Mizzen is the son, and Freddie Mizzen is the grandson. But who the hell's Richard Mizzen's come from nowhere? Anyway, I took my heart into my. Sorry, I don't know what the phrase was. I took a risk and I accepted the request.
Did you have a picture of his?
No. Actually, the picture. I did think that's definitely not what I thought it was going to be. Anyway, here we go. Richard has sent a limerick. We love a limerick.
Beautiful.
Here it goes. The Bears have a prop called Genge, with thighs like the rocks of Stonehenge. A lion soon he'll be, off to Oz full of glee. Against Quins, may he lead our revenge. And he signed it off as Rich Mizzen, brother of Spence, son of Paul, and friend of the Silverthorns.
Oh, bloody hell.
Well, you better explain.
Well, I don't know if I can. I mean, the Silverthorns, they're a crime syndicate. No, I'm joking. They're actually, it's two brilliant lads who I have the pleasure of working with. Yeah. Steve and John, and they are massive Bears supporters who feel our frustration every week. They're both listeners to the pod. I love them both, and he's in good company. He's in good company. It was like, are any more Mizzens going to come out of the woodwork or what?
I might have to watch an episode of Who Do You Think You Are, and we'll find a few more. And actually, on that note, I've just scrolled through the Twitter account, and I come across Paul Mizzen, the patriarch of the whole thing, the Mr. Big of the Mizzen family,
the grandpoppy, I thought it was just a straightforward, short, sharp summaries, and I realised as I was reading it wasn't at all. So here we go. I watched Sarries and Saints with trepidation, for much of a game with frustration. I gave up the ghost as I felt for the hosts. At the end, I needed medication. Oh, that's good.
But then he said, sorry, I'm watching Quins Exeter. But Paul Mizzen, I mean, that is, the Hambleys have got, it's like a new gang, it's like they're muscling in on their territory, isn't it? It's like the Hambleys have like owned the kind of the acrostic Limerick territory of Bears Beyond the Gate, and there's new people on the block.
It almost feels like I'm back in Withywood again.
It is.
It really does.
It is. We could have some.
I'll tell you what, as well. I know this is a single guy, but he could still throw himself in the mix.
We could.
We haven't heard anything from our mate Marcus Watts for a while.
We haven't. What's he? I think he's feeling. He must be down in the dumps somewhere, but. He's obviously having time off.
You didn't have a chat with him a couple of weeks ago, and jar him off, did you?
Maybe it was me and Miles who did it. He'd had enough of us.
Yeah,
I think we were on the train somewhere. We met him on the train to Hartbury when we went to see the Hartbury women. Maybe that was it. We pushed him over the edge with our, to be honest, our sparkling banter.
10 minutes with Miles. If you're not used to it, that could that's a relationship ender.
It could be. Yeah. There were a lot of short summaries. Do you know what I'm going to say to people? If you're interested to know what some of our listeners think, then get to our Twitter feed and have a little read through. There's some really interesting stuff there. Yeah. And a few people not happy at all.
No, can I just say on that? We are quite. I feel like as a supporter base, we're quite divided at the moment. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are feeling frustration. I think it's good to feel like that because it means it means something to us, right?
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot of supporters who have rose tinted specs and literally the sun shines out of Pat's arse.
Yeah.
There are people that are quite balanced, like can kind of go with the flow, wins or losses, but that's what makes us a great club.
Yeah.
The whole we need the whole gambit of every type of supporter, but ultimately we all need to be behind our team against Quins.
Yeah.
And we all need to be supporting.
Yeah.
For whatever happens of those 18 minutes.
Yeah.
We're all behind our team. We always will be.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing going into the last game of the season.
And I think that has changed the narrative a little bit. The fact that Saints game has given us that opportunity. Mm. So I think I echo what you say. We get the behind the boys as best we can, and then we see what happens after that, and then we deal with it accordingly.
Absolutely.
I think that'll be it. I don't think we need to chat more. I think we know what's coming. We know we've got to win against. It doesn't matter who we pick or what strategy we have. We just have to win, and then if we win, we'll see what happens after that. And of course, we know we'll get an extra game. It'd be great if it was a home game. Probably be an away game. Who knows? So I think on that note, that's all we're going to do is a preview for Quins. We got to win.
Yes. Win.
Win. And
it's a must winner.
I think it is, and hopefully Miles will be back. We'll have sorted out his domestic issues by the Sunday after that game. And hopefully it won't be the last pod we have to do for the season.
Yeah. It's a massive game and let's all just...
It's all come together.
Clear our lungs, get our voices going and sing the arts out.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody, have a good week. Stay safe. And as always,
up the Bears.